Sam Langford. He fought from 1902 to 1926 across 7 weight classes and more than 300 fights. And in all that time, he never got a shot at the heavyweight championship. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because the system never let him in. Starting out as a lightweight, he beat Joe Gans, the reigning lightweight champion, in a non-title bout at just 17 years old. Then he moved up and beat future champions like Jack O'Brien and Stanley Ketchel. When Jack Johnson became the first black heavyweight champ, fans thought Langford would be next in line. Johnson refused. Promoters refused. White champions wouldn't fight him, and black champions avoided the risk. Langford kept fighting anyway. He fought anyone. He often outweighed his opponents by 20 to 40 pounds, or gave up the same amount. His right hand broke jaws, busted ribs, and sent grown men crawling. The few fighters who did face him called him the most dangerous man alive. Even when going blind in his later years, he kept fighting just to afford rent and food. He never once complained, never begged, just kept showing up while history quietly looked away. The boxing world would eventually call him the greatest fighter nobody ever saw. And they were right. Tony Ferguson. For 7 years, Ferguson looked like he was fighting in a different dimension. From 2013 to 2020, he stacked 12 straight wins in the UFC's most violent division, lightweight. That run included elbows that sliced faces open, snap jabs, and scrambles that made no sense on paper. Nobody could solve him. Nobody could stop him. And somehow it all led to nothing. He won the interim belt in 2017 after finishing Kevin Lee with a triangle choke. That was supposed to set up the long-awaited showdown with Khabib Nurmagomedov. It never happened. The fight got booked 5 times. Cancellations came from injuries, weight cut disasters, a global pandemic, and one time, Ferguson literally tripped over a wire during media day. By the time Khabib retired, Ferguson's window had slammed shut. His next opponent, Justin Gaethje, dismantled him over 5 rounds and turned a decade of dominance into the start of a losing streak. Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush added to the slide. Chandler turned out his lights. The strangest part? Ferguson never stopped being dangerous. He never took an easy fight. He never adjusted. He stayed in the fire long after most would have walked away, and fans stayed with him. Ernie Shavers. He fought like he had bricks in his gloves. In 1977, he nearly stopped Ali in the second round of their title fight. He cracked him with a right hand that sent echoes through Madison Square Garden. Ali survived, barely, and went on to win a close decision, but the look in his eyes after the fight told the story. 2 years later, Shavers fought Larry Holmes for the WBC heavyweight title. In round 7, he landed a right hand that folded Holmes like a camp chair. Holmes hit the canvas hard, got up somehow, and eventually stopped Shavers in the 11th. Those were his 2 big chances. Both times, the champion walked away holding the belt, and Shavers walked away with nothing but respect. He fought into the mid-80s, but never got another title shot. Every heavyweight in that era knew what came with facing Shavers. You could beat him, but it might cost you a part of your jaw. The belt never showed up, but the fear always did. Joseph Benavidez. For over a decade, Joseph Benavidez stayed in the flyweight title picture like it was his permanent address. He fought in both WEC and UFC, built a 28-8 record, and had 4 chances at gold. Every one of them slipped through his hands. His first title shot came in 2010 against Dominic Cruz at bantamweight. Split decision loss. Then he dropped down to flyweight and faced Demetrius Johnson for the inaugural UFC flyweight title. Another razor-thin loss. The rematch? Knocked out in round 1. Years later, after working his way back through the division, he faced Davison Figueiredo twice. The first time, Figueiredo missed weight. No title on the line. The second time, Benavidez got finished in under 5 minutes. It wasn't for lack of talent. His footwork was elite. His pace forced opponents into mistakes. He beat Yassier Formiga, Henry Cejudo, and Tim Elliott, all title-level fighters. He was consistent, durable, technically sound, but whenever the belt was up for grabs, something went sideways. By 2021, he'd fought every top guy in the division and decided he was done. No farewell speech, no drama, just a quiet retirement after years of chasing a goal that stayed one step ahead. Alistair Overeem. He made his UFC debut in 2011 against Brock Lesnar and turned it into a highlight reel. A knee to the body, a liver kick, 1 round, done. That performance lit up the division. Fans were already talking about a future fight with Junior Dos Santos for the title. Then came a failed drug test, suspension, momentum gone. Years later, he got his shot. UFC 203, title fight against Stipe Miocic. Overeem dropped him early. He said Stipe tapped to a guillotine that didn't get called. Then he got caught coming in and went down hard. That was his only official title fight in the UFC, and it ended in a knockout loss. Overeem still stuck around and picked up wins over Fabricio Werdum, Junior Dos Santos, and Alexei Oleinik. He was top 5 for years, but the belt never came back into reach. Time, damage, and new contenders pushed him further down the line. He retired with one of the most decorated combat sports careers in history, but no UFC belt to finish the set. Donald Cowboy Cerrone. He didn't wait for perfect matchups or title shots. He fought whoever was available, at whatever weight class made sense that month. Over a 17-year career, he racked up 36 wins, 23 finishes, and more performance bonuses than some divisions have champions. From WEC to UFC, he became the guy everyone watched on Fight Night. Head kicks, body shots, triangles, submissions. He built a highlight reel that never got boring, and he was never out for long. Win or lose, he came back fast. In 2015, he fought 4 times, won them all, and earned a title shot against Rafael dos Anjos. It lasted 66 seconds. RDA crushed him to the body, and Cowboy never made it that close to gold again. He bounced between lightweight and welterweight, taking fights on 2 weeks' notice and flying across countries to step in. He fought everyone from Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor to Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. Some nights, he looked like a contender. Other nights, he got overwhelmed early. The fans never turned. Cowboy's style was reckless, aggressive, and pure entertainment. He walked into fights with a smile and walked out with respect, no matter the result. David Tua. He threw his left hook like he was trying to end the month early. Short, compact, and devastating. He scored 43 knockouts in 52 wins, most of them delivered with that same sledgehammer of a punch. Opponents knew it was coming, and still couldn't stop it. In the late 90s, he bulldozed through the heavyweight ranks. He knocked out future champ John Ruiz in just 19 seconds, then flattened Michael Moorer in the first round. By 2000, he'd earned his shot at Lennox Lewis for the unified heavyweight title. That night, he couldn't get close. Lewis fought long, stayed behind the jab, and never gave Tua the kind of opening he needed. The fight went all 12 rounds, and Tua looked stuck, waiting for a moment that never came. After that, the momentum slipped. He fought sporadically, missed some key matchups, and started dealing with contract disputes and promotional problems. He had one last run in 2009, rattling off a few wins and pushing for another title shot. But it never materialized. He had the power to end careers. But his career never hit the final level. He walked through contenders, gave fans chaos, and stayed dangerous for over a decade. Just not dangerous enough to wear the crown. Dan Henderson. He held titles in Pride and Strikeforce and became the first fighter to simultaneously hold 2 belts in a major MMA promotion. But the UFC Championship always stayed just out of reach. In 2009, he left the UFC for Strikeforce. By the time he came back, the landscape had shifted, and so had the timing. His final shot came at UFC 204. He was 46 years old and facing Bisping for the middleweight belt. Henderson knocked him down twice, nearly stopped him, but the judges gave the decision to Bisping in his home country. It was his last UFC fight. Throughout his career, he never avoided the deep end. He fought Anderson Silva, Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida, Vitor Belfort, sometimes on short notice, sometimes as the underdog. The results didn't always go his way, but the performances kept him in the mix longer than most. Mark Hunt. He knocked out Stefan Struve with a walk-off left hook that didn't need a follow-up. Dropped Frank Mir so cleanly, he turned and walked away before the ref could even react. And when the UFC needed someone to step in against Junior Dos Santos or Stipe Miocic, Hunt said yes every time. He got his interim title shot at UFC 180 after Cain Velasquez pulled out. Fabricio Werdum stopped him with a flying knee, but Hunt stayed in the mix. What followed became a war with the system. After losing to Brock Lesnar in 2016, he filed a lawsuit against the UFC. Lesnar had tested positive for banned substances, and Hunt claimed he was knowingly put at risk. The court case lasted longer than his fight camp. Meanwhile, he kept fighting against opponents, matchmakers, and lawyers. No gold, no belt, just knockouts, paychecks, and an eventual legal battle that made noise far beyond the cage. Arturo Gatti. Arturo Gatti didn't win boxing matches on the scorecards. He won them in blood, grit, and volume. His fights were blockbusters that left fans on their feet and cutmen scrambling. From the mid-90s to the early 2000s, he became the face of what boxing felt like, not what it looked like on paper. He earned a title shot in 1995 and won the IBF super featherweight belt, but never unified or held a major world title for long. Most of his defining fights came outside of championship contexts. Wars with Wilson Rodriguez, Angel Manfredi, and Gabriel Ruelas, where his face absorbed the cost of every round. Then came the trilogy with Mickey Ward. 3 fights, 30 rounds, no belts, just violence, drama, and respect that carried more weight than any sanctioning body's stamp. He lost the first, edged the next 2, and walked away from that rivalry as something bigger than a winner. He fought Floyd Mayweather in 2005 for the WBC title and got dismantled. It was a level gap Gatti couldn't close, but fans didn't care. He had already given them everything. He retired in 2007 with a 49 record and more classic fights than some champions rack up in a decade. Hall of Fame inducted, life tragically cut short, and a career that proved legacy doesn't always come with a belt. Nate Diaz. He won the Ultimate Fighter in 2007 and started racking up submission wins with his long frame and relentless pace. The jiu-jitsu was slick, but the attitude sold tickets. He flipped off opponents, taunted mid-fight, and treated the octagon like his personal street corner. In 2012, he fought Benson Henderson for the lightweight title. 5 rounds later, it was clear the belt wouldn't live in Stockton. He took the loss, reset, and didn't return to the title picture again. In 2016, he got the late call to fight Conor McGregor at UFC 196. He stepped in on 11 days' notice. No training camp, no problem. He survived the early flurry, slapped Conor, choked him out, and told the world he wasn't surprised. That win changed everything. It turned Diaz into a main event fighter overnight. He headlined PPVs, created the BMF belt with Jorge Masvidal, and kept cashing in without ever putting gold on the line. He left the UFC in 2022 with no official titles and all the leverage. He stayed raw, never played the company game, and still filled arenas. No belt ever made him. He did that on his own. Jorge Masvidal. He debuted in the UFC in 2013 and floated between divisions. Solid wins, split decisions, technical skill that didn't always translate into headlines. By 2017, Masvidal had a reputation as a skilled veteran, but not a star. That changed in 2019. It started with Darren Till in London. Masvidal knocked him out, then punched Leon Edwards backstage on live TV. Then came Ben Askren, 5 seconds, 1 flying knee, and the fastest KO in UFC history. Suddenly, Masvidal wasn't just on the roster. He was front and centre. He headlined Madison Square Garden against Nate Diaz for the one-off BMF title. Doctor stoppage, victory, pay-per-view numbers off the charts. Then he stepped in to fight Kamaru Usman for the welterweight belt on 6 days' notice. Lost by decision. Got a rematch the next year and got knocked out clean. Those 2 losses locked him out of title contention. He stuck around for big fights, Colby Covington, celebrity boxing, but the belt stayed out of reach. He retired in 2023 with 35 wins, highlight knockouts, and more momentum in his late 30s than most get in their prime. Yoel Romero. He came into the UFC at 36 years old and started stacking knockouts. Clifford Starks, Lyoto Machida, Chris Weidman. Most of them ended with Romero doing something that made fans pause the replay and ask how that was physically possible. His first title fight came against Robert Whittaker for the interim belt. 5 rounds of chaos. Romero injured his leg but still pushed Whittaker the distance. Lost by decision. They ran it back. This time, no belt because Romero missed weight. Another war, another close decision, another missed opportunity. In 2019, Paulo Costa beat him in a back-and-forth slugfest. Then came the title shot against Israel Adesanya in 2020. 5 rounds of tactical hesitations, neither man pulled the trigger. Romero lost on points again. He went 1-4 across 5 fights that could have launched a champion. All decisions, all against top-tier talent. No knockout losses, no submission taps, just scorecards that didn't break his way. He eventually left the UFC for Bellator. The title stayed behind, the highlight reel didn't. Ike Ibeabuchi. He entered boxing in the mid-90s and started stacking knockouts like a man on a mission. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, he just walked through people. Then he ran into David Tua, an unbeaten heavyweight with dynamite in both hands, and fought him like it was a sprint to the apocalypse. They combined for a then-record 1,730 punches thrown in 12 rounds. Ibeabuchi won the decision and instantly became one of the most talked-about names in the division. A year later, he faced Chris Bird, a slick southpaw who frustrated heavyweights with footwork and timing. Ibeabuchi knocked him out in 5 rounds. Bird had never been stopped before. 20 wins, 0 losses. No one figured him out. No one even came close. Then the headlines shifted. Assault allegations, mental health issues, erratic behaviour. Ibeabuchi was arrested and eventually sentenced to prison. Just like that, one of the most promising heavyweight careers of the era was gone. No title fights, no rematches, no peak. George Chuvalo. George Chuvalo's record doesn't scream greatness. 73 wins, 18 losses. But the names on that list tell the real story. He fought for the world title twice. First against Ernie Terrell in 1965, then Ali in 1966. Both went the distance. Terrell outpointed him. Ali couldn't miss, but still couldn't move him. Chuvalo walked forward through jabs and combinations like his body didn't register pain. When Foreman beat him in 1970, it took 20 clean shots to force a stoppage. Even then, Chuvalo never hit the canvas. His chin became boxing folklore, talked about like a mythical artifact. Outside the ring, his life was anything but easy. He buried 3 sons and his wife in separate tragedies linked to addiction. Still, he spoke publicly about grief, stayed active in schools, and became a symbol of endurance that went beyond sports. Gray Maynard. He started his UFC run with a blueprint. Wrestle heavy, hit harder, and don't let anyone breathe. He went unbeaten in his first 11 fights, racking up wins over Frankie Edgar and Nate Diaz. By 2011, he was undefeated, powerful, and ready for gold. He fought Frankie Edgar for the lightweight title at UFC 125. First round, Maynard dropped him multiple times. Edgar somehow survived, and the fight ended in a draw. That meant a rematch, UFC 136. Maynard came in confident, cracked Edgar again in the early rounds but couldn't close the show. Edgar rallied, landed a combo in the 4th, and knocked him out. That was the turning point. Maynard never looked the same after those wars. He lost to TJ Grant. Then Nate Diaz finished him in 1 round. A few more losses followed, and the momentum vanished. He stayed active for a while, but the belt was no longer in reach. At his peak, Maynard was a problem nobody could figure out, except the one guy who had the belt. And that's it. Now, to you, which of these warriors do you think actually deserved the title? Share your thoughts in the comments section below, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.